Hello, everyone. Let's begin today with a bow, and we're going to talk about mindfulness-based cognitive therapy. So let's begin with a bow. It's really wonderful to be with you all today. And I've been pretty excited about this conversation because when we look at cognitive behavioral therapy from the perspective of mindfulness, we can begin to understand the power of the mind and what influence we can have over the way we think, over our thoughts, over the way that we pursue avenues of thinking, like what happens when you have some discipline of the mind. So that's what we're going to talk about, and I'm going to share my screen and we'll begin. Okay. So mindfulness-based cognitive behavioral therapy. I want to go over concepts and skills. And I want to bring your attention to two texts that I've used in the course of this particular lecture. I'll post these on your on the module under readings. And I have a bit that I think I'm going to scan and upload for you to read. We have Mindfulness-Based Cognitive Therapy by Susan Woods, Patricia Rockman, and Evan Collins. And I also have A Day Without Pain by Mel Pohl. And this is also the use of cognitive behavioral therapy to deal with chronic pain. So we're going to look at both of these. And I know that you have some understanding from previous classes about the basics, I think, of cognitive behavioral therapy. My intention here is to expand on that and also to bring in how this can be useful in terms of working with chronic pain. So we'll begin by just looking at what we mean by mindfulness-based cognitive therapy. It's really having mindful attention on how we can stabilize the mindfulness of our clients. Like, how can we help them become stabilized in the way in which they begin to address the things that are troubling them? So stabilizing through mindfulness reduces things like rumination. I mean, I have clients who ruminate continuously about negative things that have occurred in their past, fears they have about the future. Those kinds of things can be constant rumination, like a cycle of preparedness for something terrible to happen. I have a client who ruminated about being killed in an accident because someone she loved had been killed in an accident. And so that rumination was continuous, or rumination about shame and feeling shame for some event that may have occurred to this person that quite likely wasn't their fault when they were a child, and ruminating over the shame that they experience and the times when low self-esteem or not feeling good about themselves comes up as part of the rumination. So with mindful attention, we can begin to notice those ruminations and we can interrupt them. And we interrupt them with the skills that we teach in regards to mindfulness, but also in regards to cognitive behavioral therapy. So cognitive behavioral therapy, I'm going to talk about the cycle a little later, but there's a particular way in which cognitive behavioral therapy is understood. And I think we can talk very clearly about where mindfulness can be inserted in that understanding, in that cycle. So one of the ways we also stabilize our clients is it reduces denial, and that's the denial of one's reality. I find that one of the most important and difficult things for clients to do, particularly when they're working with trauma, is to get their reality straight and to break through the denial that they might have about that reality. So one of the things mindfulness does is it allows people to see the truth of things. It allows them also to reduce worry. They don't have to necessarily worry about the future. Rumination is often about the past, although not always. It can be catastrophizing the future, but worry is generally about something that hasn't yet happened. So being able to stay present in the moment with mindfulness skills can reduce our worry about the future. And using that along with the skills designed specifically for CBT, we can find ourselves reducing the anxiety and stress that come with worry. We can also stop avoidance, meaning we will have the ability to face things that may be difficult to see or difficult to face. And it also allows us to distract when things become overwhelming. So why do we stabilize mindful attention in our clients? To reduce rumination, denial, worry, avoidance, and distraction. So it also allows for awareness of automatic thoughts, the automatic pilot. So one of the concepts of cognitive behavioral therapy is understanding that there is some kind of event that occurs. With that event, we have a thought. The thought then produces an emotion. Sometimes we have an emotion and the emotion produces the thought. One of the ways that I think of it is that something happens. Someone says something to you. You have a feeling of being disregarded or not valued in some way. You tell yourself a story, that's the thought, about that event. You believe that story, that's the cognitive distortion. And then you behave as if the story you've told yourself is accurate, right? As if it's the truth. So people can make very big decisions based on this and very small decisions based on this. But it's that cognitive cycle and process that we can interrupt at any stage when we use mindfulness. There can be an event and we can pause and give ourselves the opportunity to be aware of the body sensations and signals that we have as a result of whatever just occurred. Someone says something to you that hurts your feelings, maybe. So you pause and be with whatever you're experiencing rather than just react, rather than just getting angry with them or retaliating in some way. You simply pause. So awareness allows us to be aware of those body sensations and signals. From that, we have choice. We have the choice of going with the story that we're telling ourselves about what just happened, or we have the choice of being able to be with the sensations we're experiencing, becoming curious about them, and perhaps asking for clarification or using authentic relating skills or other skills that we can learn in CBT to ask the person what they meant by whatever was said, or to say whatever you said. What I'm aware of in my body is that my heart hurt when I heard that. And the other person can respond to that. So that awareness interrupts that cycle of moving directly from an event to the sensations in our body, naming them as an emotion, and then telling ourselves a story and believing the story or the cognitive distortion that we may develop as a result of that experience. So that awareness increases our ability to have choice. It increases our ability to have focus. We can focus on the sensation because we've been practicing mindfulness skills. We can focus on the experience of what just occurred. And sometimes what that will do is allow us to deepen our understanding of whatever it is that we're experiencing or why those words were hurtful to us, and whether or not it has anything at all to do with the other person. They may not have intended harm, for example. But this ability to be with the sensation that becomes triggered or alive as a result of the interaction, the event, whatever it is, our ability to focus and be with that also increases our window of tolerance for uncomfortable feelings. And being able to increase that window of tolerance of uncomfortable thoughts and feelings gives us more choice in terms of how we're going to respond to things in the world. We're not going to be as reactive. We're not going to, we're going to realize that a lot of things that happen are not personal. We're going to be able to make some distinctions, and we're going to be able to be with whatever that sensation is, go deeper with it, and find out what it's really there to teach us. What is it there to show us? What is there for us to heal? So we develop the witness. The witness is the one that's going to observe that window of tolerance, is going to observe those sensations and whatever that experience that we had from that event. And with practice, experience, and repetition of this mindfulness practice, we develop new skills for how to be with events that otherwise would have triggered us into a certain kind of emotional reaction and also into a certain pattern of thinking. And that pattern of thinking usually is not some pattern that will make us feel better about ourselves. More likely, it's going to make us feel not very good, right? So automatic thoughts are habits. We develop them by repetition, practice over a lifetime. We perpetuate, they perpetuate depression and low mood, low self-esteem. And we have a hard time being engaged in the present moment when we're caught in the habit of these automatic thoughts. And they discount the experiences that are new, that don't actually support the thought. So what do we mean by this? If you take a moment to just be with yourself, right? For a moment, just watch your thoughts. Maybe take a breath and bring your attention inward. Close your eyes if you'd like, and reduce distraction from the exterior of your environment. And just notice your thoughts. Notice what thoughts are really familiar. Think about your day. Think about the things that you felt good about through the day and the things that maybe you didn't feel so good about. And notice the thoughts you have as a result of those events. Notice if some of those thoughts are habitual, automatic. I'm not quite good enough. I should have done it better. I'll never understand. No one will ever understand me. Whatever those thoughts are that you've had when things don't go so well, those are automatic thoughts that usually have been developed from childhood experiences that we then developed with practice and repetition over a lifetime into what we thought or believe are fact. Or oftentimes things that we think we can't ever get past. Like, I'll never get past this depression. I'll never like myself. I'll never feel good enough. Those are automatic thoughts that come up with certain events through the course of our day, and they perpetuate our belief that nothing can change. But in fact, they can. That's really the power of inserting mindfulness skills into our cognitive process. And we talk a lot about, in Buddhist psychology, we talk about the mind and being able to study the mind, right? We want to study the thoughts from the point of view of a witness, but realize that we're not our thoughts. We're not our thoughts. We're not our feelings. We're not even our opinions. We're something other than that. That to me is the mystery of our spiritual journey, is to understand if we're not all that, then who are we, right? But those are the things that we use to define our sense of self. I think I know who I am by what I value, or what I believe politically, or what I'm willing to stand for. Those things are true, and they do give us a sense of identity. But when our thoughts go beyond that to automatic negative beliefs we have about ourselves, those thoughts can be interrupted with mindfulness, because they're not fact. They're beliefs that we came to. Core beliefs is what we call them. Negative core beliefs that we came to usually as children in terms of our developmental growth. And from them come what we call cognitive distortions, a way in which we perceive the world based on that core belief being fact or truth. So automatic thoughts reinforce those core beliefs if we don't mindfully begin to disrupt them, interrupt them, change them, gather new information that challenge those thoughts. So mindful practices, you've been already learning these and doing these. And these are things that you can, of course, do with your clients as a mindful counselor. Formal meditation. If I am having a lot of negative thought about myself, I can use formal meditation to settle inside and see a bigger sense of who I am. Entering a space of no thought, which is lovely when we can get there, right? But there's a lot of informal mindfulness practices that we can teach our clients and that we ourselves can do. Mindfully doing the dishes. One of the things I love to do is the dishes. I've always loved doing the dishes. I love the feeling of the warm water on my hands. Always like that. I love completing a task. I love knowing that I'm doing something that contributes to my family. Since I was a child, that's one of the things that I particularly enjoyed. I didn't so much enjoy taking out the garbage, but I enjoyed dishes. And it became a very informal mindfulness practice for me as a child, and I think even now as an adult. If I have a gathering, it's likely me who's in the kitchen doing the dishes. Informal mindfulness practices can be as simple as petting your pet, petting your dog or your cat, but doing it mindfully and being aware of the sensation of the feeling of the dog's or the cat's hair and body under your hand. That's a simple, informal mindfulness practice. So we can begin to bring these informal practices into our consciousness. And as we bring them into our consciousness with repetition and experience of that, we continue to do that. It becomes a new track of our awareness that says, oh, I had this thought that I wasn't good enough. And yet here I am feeling the water in my hands as I do the dishes, petting my dog or my cat, doing something for my child mindfully with awareness. And that thought begins to fade away. That automatic thought will begin to fade because you are now in the present, just being with the truth of this moment where you are completely whole and complete. where there is no not good enough. His dog is very happy, right? You can take a walk. You can feel the steps under your feet. Those things bring you to the present where those thoughts have no place. They start to fade away. They start to move to the background. So in this way, the ordinary becomes, in my mind, extraordinary. Because the more we can practice when those thoughts arise, coming back to the present and being fully in the present in some informal mindfulness awareness practice, just touch and go. Touch into it. Thought may come back, touch into it. Eventually the thought fades. And where you are is in the present, where there's nothing wrong. There's nothing to worry about. There's nothing negative happening. You're just here. And all is well. 90% of the time, I think, if we're in the present, things are okay. But our mind needs to learn that that's the way out of that rumination and that negative cycle. So I want to talk about the role of the mindful counselor. But before I go there, actually, I think I'm going to do that now. I wanted to just share something from Kabat-Zinn. And Kabat-Zinn is really a foundational piece of our Buddhist psychology and study. And I'm sure it's someone that you've heard of before. But what he says is that the mindful counselor, the role of the counselor, is being able to develop an attitude of that we can then model for our clients. This list, being present, patient, having trust, having the beginner's mind, curiosity, compassion, this was never intended to be all that we consider. It's not meant to be an exhaustive list, but rather to emphasize qualities that are inherent in our mindfulness practice. And the intention here is that the role of the mindful counselor is to practice the skills that we like our clients to learn so that we then become present in the moment, in this moment in time, with patience, that we can be here and let our negative thoughts fade, just as we're teaching our clients to do this. We can trust the process of being with our mindfulness practice and knowing that giving our focus and attention there will already begin to change our thoughts. I think the beginner's mind is the most exciting piece because everything becomes a curiosity. Everything becomes new. Everything has room for exploration, adventure, many things we don't understand. And from there, we develop compassion. We develop empathy. We understand the role of suffering, and we have some idea of how we can move away from suffering, away from attachment, away from grasping, into something that is perhaps more fruitful for us. So I wanted to look at one more thing with you. And this is the therapeutic goals. There's a cycle, as I said, with CBT. And this is where I wish I had a blackboard. I'm not very good at using the blackboard on Zoom. So I'm just going to describe it. But if you can imagine a circle, you have an event, you have an emotion, or you have a thought, because these two things in my mind can be juxtaposition. So you have an event, you have a thought, it generates a feeling. From there, you develop a story. And from there, that story is connected to core beliefs and cognitive distortions that we've developed over time. In mindfulness, if we consider the embodied mindful presence of the mindful counselor, what the job is then, or what our task, if you will, in that cycle, is to facilitate experience through guided meditation, cognitive exercises, inquiry. So when there's an event, we begin to interrupt the event with that inquiry. We interrupt, not the event, sorry. We interrupt the cycle of going just from the event to thought by guiding the way we think about it. We now start to think about it with inquiry and curiosity and compassion. From there, we can reflect and observe and describe our experience. We can reflect on the sensations in our bodies rather than just moving into the emotion and a reactive emotion. We can now reflect on what am I experiencing as a result of the event and the thought that I just experienced. Then we can begin to have some abstract conceptualization and generalization of experience. In other words, we begin to say, oh, this is going to be okay because it's been okay in the past. We can generalize from other experiences that if I'm present in this moment, feeling what I'm feeling, that I'll be okay and I'll be able to endure the uncomfortableness of that and move through that. And then we can experiment and apply the learning by trying new ways of being, rather than just responding to the automatic thought as if it's truth. So I hope this makes sense to you all. But that's how I see it, like this circle. And we're going to interrupt the circle by really getting curious and facilitating the curiosity and the depth of what does this experience mean to me. I actually find that moving into that depth of some event has occurred, I have an emotional or physical or sensation response to it, really allows us to use some of our Gestalt skills and perceptions, perhaps our internal family systems understanding of parts, whatever it might be, to be able to deepen our awareness and understanding of what those sensations, emotions, feelings, thoughts are about and where they really come from. And when we can begin to have that level of depth of curiosity and really deepen the experience, to me, that's when there's the opportunity for a shift in our awareness and a shift in our belief and understanding of who we are. So I think these two modalities work well when we think of them in this way, using the skills of mindfulness as part of that process. So therapeutic goals would be to instill hope, to recognize the universality of suffering, that you're not unique, this is how it is for many people, to increase our self-understanding, to increase our existential or transpersonal understanding, and gaining and practicing skills. So therapeutic goals, I think in general for CBT, are fairly straightforward. But now I want to talk a little bit about how this works when we're looking at pain. So I'm going to move to the next slide here. So there's a frame for inquiry. Recognizing, noticing the experience, the ability to track the components of the experience, and then the integration of the experience. So when we think about CBT and that cycle, I want you to think about it that it's really an opportunity to notice the way in which we've come to understand the world, the perception we have about ourselves, and that we can track that, we can make change in that, and we can integrate that and have new beliefs as a result of that, a new experience, a new perception. So that's what allows us to really use this well when it comes to pain, because chronic pain is really rooted in stress and fear, anxiety, sadness, depression. I was thinking about, because I work with addiction, I was thinking about the pain that comes with withdrawal from opioids. The pain relieving effect of the opioid lasts only a few hours. And then the pain that it was supposed to dull, because it really just dulls the pain, it returns even more intensely. And then as the drug wears off, and people who take opioids over a long period have intermittent withdrawal between the doses, which increases the pain. And the withdrawal itself can cause pain. So the thing I like about using CBT when we're and mindfulness practices when we're looking at pain is that we already know that medications are limited in the way in which they can address pain and can also cause us to have even more negative consequences from the pain. So if you can change your thinking, you can change your pain. You can identify maladaptive schema, identify distorted thoughts regarding the pain. This will never go away. I'll never be okay. Practice cognitive restructuring, replacing these thoughts with more constructive thoughts. So I think about a client that I've known who had was born with a disability in the structure of her hips, and surgeries didn't help. This was a young woman who was in constant chronic pain. And she was able to reduce the medications that she used by using the principles of mindfulness along with interrupting negative cognitions. She also used mindfulness as a way of stretching, as a way of movement. She became more aware of the way she moved her body so that less pain generated from her hips. And she was able to become much more functional. At one point, she was really resigned to spending her life in bed because she didn't want to deal with the pain. But now she has a pretty full life and she has a job and she's doing things because she was able to use these principles to manage that pain, because that pain will be with her forever. I know of another young woman who was born with a condition where she had no skin on her body when she was born. And so she blisters easily now, and it's very painful. She has learned with the same understanding of mindfulness how to live with that pain and minimal in terms of medication to try to numb the pain, because all it does is numb the symptom. It doesn't ever take it away. So I've really been excited about seeing the way in which mindfulness practices can, along with CBT, can interrupt our sense of catastrophizing the pain that we're experiencing. So some of the ways in which people can get caught in those negative thoughts is generalizing, looking at an event like it's a never-ending cycle. It's never going to stop. Sometimes it's personalizing, blaming automatically when something bad happens that it must be me. If I'm hurting, it must be because I did something wrong. It's because I somehow caused that pain because I was not mindful enough, right? Because I am not good enough, because I didn't try hard enough. Sometimes polarizing, having real black and white thinking can be one of the ways in which we get caught in these schemas. And catastrophizing, anticipating the worst. I've had clients who are very good at catastrophizing and are always absolutely certain that things will never get better. And some of that catastrophizing I have come to understand in working with people comes from having had so little relief from the pain, using simple allopathic medicine. Because as we said with opioids, the relief from the pain is temporary. There's a relief and then it returns, and a relief and it returns. But if I can participate in a wide variety of interventions, including changing the way I think about the pain, if I can relax into the pain, it's one of the things that's really the basis of the somatic intelligence text, where she talks about how she learned to just relax into her pain enough for her pain to heal, rather than resisting it and fighting it and not giving way to the negative thoughts that she had previously had. There's also filtering. There's a task that we have of filtering where we tend to exaggerate the negative aspects of a situation and minimize the positive ones. So when we're looking at a functional analysis of our pain, these are the things that we're going to look at. And I think about it similarly to the conversation I had in one of our previous lectures about the blue and the red in terms of the mind, right? That very basic understanding that cool thoughts are usually simple statements of fact. No particular emotion is suggested by these statements. Most days I have chronic pain. That's a fact. Warm thoughts are linked to a mild, or red thoughts are linked to a mild degree of reaction, and typically associated with preferences. I wish I didn't have to hurt all the time. I wish I didn't have to hurt today, right? So that's part of what we're working with when we try to mindfully recognize that even though I have chronic pain, I can rest into it. I can rest under it, and I can be pain-free for moments at a time. So the book Somatic Intelligence is really going to, she goes through some very thorough and exquisite ways in which she learned to work with mindfulness training and changing her thoughts to heal the pain that she was experiencing. So we have to identify distorted, self-defeating, irrational thoughts and beliefs, and create more distress and create more misery, more suffering than is necessary. That's one of the primary goals then of using mindfulness-based CBT with pain. We can change and dispute those thoughts because they're irrational. They're not based in the present moment. And we can change, challenge, and dispute those core beliefs. We can develop healthier beliefs and attitudes. And we can increase our confidence that we have the ability to successfully manage adverse situations and events even beyond our pain. It strengthens us to be able to handle a lot of things that we thought we couldn't handle. I was thinking about all this in part because I've been in a situation of chronic pain for some time now. And I'm aware that because I've been working on these skills, that even though the pain is there, I was thinking about yesterday where the pain was intense in my back, and I had things I had to attend to at my job at the Rose House. There were just things going on. But what I was aware of was that I could just breathe into the pain and stay present to what I was doing or the person I was with or the situation I was dealing with. And if I don't complain about the pain, if I don't draw attention to it as a negative, it shouldn't be there, if I don't resist it, if I don't judge it, if I simply notice it and breathe into it, doesn't mean the pain goes away. It means that I have this mindful presence to the fact that the pain is there and I have something else I have to do, and that's in front of me. And I stay in the present moment and let the pain just be there. Initially, when I began to have this pain and this discomfort, I had a lot of judgment. I had a lot of opinion. I wanted it to go away. I was actually had quite an interesting journey of coming to befriend the pain. And eventually I befriended it. I learned that I could live with it. And I began to think about somatic intelligence. I began to think about the woman with the hips and the woman with the pain in her skin. And I thought, these people have to live with this pain. There's lots of people who live with pain all the time. I can too. And the pain doesn't mean that there's something personally wrong with me. I don't have to catastrophize it. I can just learn how to breathe with it and let it be and remain present, because it doesn't identify who I am. It's simply something that's occurring. That kind of mindfulness practice and bringing that to the pain happens because of practice, repetition, and experience of mindfulness practice in my life for, 30 years. So I have a lot of opportunity to develop the skills. And you do too, because that's what you're doing here in this program. Your clients do as well. So relaxing, slowing down, having mindful moments, just being aware. Like I said, just breathing into it, no judgment. Nothing I have to change or fix, nothing I can change or fix. Just being with it, letting it be. Sometimes you can help clients by having them write a record of good days. Maybe observing the strength of the pain, because that's something doctors always like to know. But it's also good for clients to know that on Monday, the pain was at a 3, even if on Wednesday it was at a 7 or 8. There are days when the pain is less than other days, and they can begin to notice that. Because when the 7 or 8 comes up, our tendency is to say, it's always this bad. But in fact, it's not, if we're paying attention. And that can help reduce the stress and the anxiety. Where is it? The stress, fear, anxiety, sadness. It can help reduce all of that, because now we're seeing the reality of the pain and that it ebbs and it flows. I think loving kindness meditations are really good for this. Loving kindness meditations, humor, softness, being gentle with yourself, having your client be gentle with themselves with the pain and whatever thoughts may arise. They're not having pain because of what happened when they were 5. They're having pain because of something that's going on in their body today. And they don't have to go to a cognitive distortion of whatever that 5-year-old needs to heal. They can let the pain be the pain and do the work on healing the 5-year-old as a separate thing, as a distinct thing. So we can detach from the feelings and physical sensations associated with the pain simply by breathing into the pain. The thing that I have found particularly interesting is that the pain has underneath it a root of some emotional response or emotional repression. And I've been interested in getting clear about what that is. And as I allow that to become clear, the pain has room to soften in those moments. So I gave you a lot of information here. I'm hoping that it's sufficient for you to work with. I'll stop sharing my screen now. And I'm quite delighted to be sharing this with you because I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to work with these concepts, with pain, with grief. We're going to talk more about grief at the intensive, but these same concepts are going to work with all of the experiences of our lives because our thinking impacts everything that we experience. And we combine this understanding with what we've been studying about acceptance and acceptance therapy, ACT, and then looking at how do we bring mindfulness into all of this. It becomes a really, I think, a really beautifully constructed opportunity for our clients and for ourselves to make some real significant change. So I think we'll stop here. I'm going to invite you to bow out with me, and I look forward to seeing you soon.